Going on YouTube, Global Belts here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be actually reviewing the Malmo Regionals here today on the channel. And usually we always do like North American regionals, for example, like we just did Hartford, right? But we always cover all of these North American regionals, and I figured now I want to try and look at some of these other regionals overseas and also just analyze them. And this way, for the benefit of you guys, you get to see like differences in the meta, if there are any at the given moment, between like North America and some of these other regionals elsewhere overseas. So I wanted to try this one, and you know, basically they happen on the same day, right? The same weekend. So I figured you might as well, right? So again, 275 plus players, so it's a pretty good event. And it's another one where we saw Rain not only in like the do very well, but it actually won the whole thing. And this is Maddie Morgan's team, okay? And we're gonna also review Marco's team in a second, because you know it was more or less a Rain versus Sun kind of team, which we'll get into in a second. But overall, the main idea with this regional is that there were a lot of interesting sets from a lot of like what is apparently like standard Pokemon. Like for example, you know, in this team right here from Francesco, it was like Assault Vest Annihilape, which we'll get more into the later part of the video. But let's look at the winning team here. So from Maddie. So Maddie was a Rain team, and if you remember in Hartford, Ryan came up in second with Rain. So Rain's really good at the moment. But the difference between Ryan's Rain team and Maddie's team is, again, they both have the Fluttermane, Amoonguss, Pelipper, and Iron Hands. You know, a very standard core. But with Ryan, he's using the Azumarill for the physical water damage, whereas Maddie is going with the standard Palafin stuff. And then over here we have a Goldengo. You know, steel types are very good in the rain. I've always liked steel types in the rain, but Maddie instead is just going with the Arcanine here for a little bit more intimidate support and just overall like defensive bulk, because you're able to just go for Will-O-Wisp to neuter physical attackers, so now they're just not doing any damage. And of course extreme speed is just able to snipe relatively low health Pokemon. Rocky Helmet is pretty good, because now again what you're doing with Rocky Helmet is with Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp, you're neutering a lot of this physical damage that may be dished out onto your team. But then if you have the Rocky Helmet, they're just dealing more damage to themselves than they are dealing damage to you, right? So it's a really smart idea here, as opposed to putting the Rocky Helmet on a Amoonguss, which I like actually. But if you look at the rest of the team, so it's Terra Grass, Palafin as well, along with Terra Grass, Arcanine, Terra Grass, Iron Hands. Terra Grass, by the way, you know, is just really good on a Rain team in general, because your weakness is fire, but again, you can neutralize that fire weakness by being in the rain. So good synergy there. And of course, you're able to just get around Amoonguss, because Amoonguss is annoying, so you don't want to get spored. Okay, so a lot of these options have ways around Amoonguss, especially the Pelipper here with safety goggles. But now, again, with Palafin, you don't get Terra-type Water, which you kind of need sometimes to deal extra damage. But now, you can kind of compensate with that by just putting it with Pelipper, right? Because then you get the Rain Boost to give you that damage anyway. And then for here, the rest of the team is actually relatively standard, except the fact that you get Trick Room on the Fluttermane. And if I'm not mistaken, Ryan also had Trick Room on his Fluttermane too. Yep, so both players from Hartford and Regional, Hartford and Malmo, they both have Trick Room on their Fluttermane on this Rain team. So that's, you know, just interesting to see like back and back as far as like the sets. But then from here, it's just Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Protect, you know, Booster Energy, Fluttermane, of course. And then Iron Hands, again, sticking with the template that I've always believed, again, I always say this every time we cover Rain, that you always want this Iron Hands on a Rain team, because this core of Palafin, Amoonguss, and said water type, whether it be like Azumarill or Palafin or something, it just does, it's a little bit tricky to Iron Bundle, right, because of Freeze Dry. So Iron Hands just can come in and just click either the electric move or the fighting move into the Iron Bundle. So that's really nice as well. And then from here, again, if you just look at this Assault Vest set, it's just Wild Punch, Drain Punch, and then Heavy Slam, you know, the Steel Tech, just to be able to snipe potential Fluttermane. Sometimes you also see like Volt Switch, just to be able to pivot out, you know, into your Palafin again after hard switching at turn 1. That's always like a relatively standard combination. And here, you don't even see that from Ryan's team either, right? So the people have moved past the Volt Switch pivot move, and instead have just made it a requirement to just put a Steel move on this Iron Hands, just to be able to snipe those Fluttermanes, especially. Then over here, Terra Steel, again, Terra Steel Pelipper is also really nice in the rain, because you're weak to fire type attacks, but again, in the rain, you're not really weak to it, are you, right? So then the Amoonguss Terra Electric is always relatively interesting whenever I see it. That's sometimes, the matchup into the safety goggles Chiyu gets a little interesting, especially if they're like Terra Grass, because now, you can't spore it, and then it just does big damage into you, for super effective hits. So then you might as well just like give yourself a Terra type that can be kind of neutral into the Chiyu, which I think Electric can pretty much do. But overall, again, you have a lot of these VGC tools that you have that you want on a team, right? You have Intimidate, you have Fake Out, you have Redirection, and you have Speed Control, right? Because the Pelipper has Tailwind. So, and then you have status infliction moves like Spore and Will-O-Wisp, okay? And then you have priority moves like Jet Punch, for example. And then you actually have two forms of Speed Control, right? You have Trick Room and Tailwind on this team, which I really like on these rain teams at the moment, because now you're just enabling the Amoonguss and the Iron Hands in general. But yeah, so the two teams, like from Ryan and Maddie's team, they have, 4 of the same core. So in that sense, you can almost play them relatively similar. But the main difference, of course, is the Gold Dango here being another strong special attacker on the team, versus like the Azumarill, which kind of almost plays like the Palafin, because you have a priority water move. You have Liquidation, which is a non-priority hard-hitting water move, but you still get a physical fairy move over here, whereas on Maddie's team, you're just opting for Haze to not only remove Intimidate buffs, but also to remove Dondozo stuff as well. Whereas on Ryan's team, he's going with the Clear Smog and foregoing Protect, whereas Maddie says, because I have Haze on the Palafin, I'm just going to put Protect on my Amoonguss. I don't really need Clear Smog anymore. All right. So then that was Maddie's team. So then let's look at Marco's team over here. So, I did say it was a Sun team, and you might say, well, where's the Sun coming from? There's no Torkoal here. There's no Murkros, clicking Sunny Day. But there is a Sun Center, believe it or not. And this is what was really cool about Marco's team. There is Sunny Day on the Talonflame, right? I almost forget that Talonflame does get Sunny Day, which is actually really, really interesting. So by now doing Sunny Day, now you're enabling your Fluttermane, you're enabling your Great Tusk, as always, right? Because they're both photosynthesis mons. And you're also enabling the Chiyu for that matter, right? Because now, even though you are Sash, so you're not Life Orb or no Nasty Plot, so you're lacking in some damage, but then you can kind of compensate for that by just, hitting hard in the sun, with heat waves and overheats, right? But like I said, also, the Sunny Day will also remove the rain against those rain teams. So you can kind of win the weather war in that sense. You don't have to like hard switch for that regard, which the Pelipper teams have to do. Okay, and then from there, just relative balance stuff, like you put a King Gambit here with Terra Flying, so you can just click Earthquake next to it, of course, and then the Iron Bundle here with Terra Ice, a little bit more extra damage with Freeze Dry, and then just relative good speed control with Icy Wind alone to go with your Tailwind support here. So very hyper aggressive team, very good team. Life Orb, Life Orb Great Tusk, is really good, as opposed to maybe you want like Choice Scarf Great Tusk, which is still pretty good, but then sometimes you may not like being locked into one move, so you can just go for Life Orb, deal a little bit more extra damage, and then from there, just click some other move next turn especially. All right, so really cool teams from Marco and Maddie, so congrats to them. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover some other topics and some interesting Pokemon with some interesting sets, because that was pretty much the highlight of the Malmo Regionals. There were some interesting Pokemon that you saw, and along with some standard Pokemon, but with some interesting sets. So let's take a look at some of these. Okay, one of the Pokemon that we did see in the top cut results was actually Tsareena, and we've covered Tsareena on the channel before, just because of some of the utility it can provide your team. And again, it depends on the team, but it does have a niche role, starting with its ability, Queenly Majesty, right? So if you don't know what Queenly Majesty does, basically you're protected from using priority moves, right? So think about all the Pokemon that have priority moves with like Fake Out, for example, or like Jet Punch from Palafin, Extreme Speeds from Dragonites and Arcanines, that kind of sense. Tsareena can just come in on switch, block that, and then you can use your other slot to punish them for going for said priority move from there, right? So, but it also gets some other moves. All right, and we're going to take a look at over here, not Hartford, but the Malmo Regionals here. So from Nick Nielsen, Sam as well. So very similar teams in the sense that they're both hyper offensive Great Tusk teams. So let's look at Nick's first. So with Nick, what is he doing here with Tsareena? So it's basically Choice Band Tsareena with Shenpao. So imagine like Dragonite here, but then you just have, instead of Choice Band Dragonite, you have Choice Band Tsareena. So Trop Kick is really good because again, it's like an active form of Intimidate. Because if you don't know what this move does, you're basically dropping the attack by a stage, which is really nice. And again, it's a stab move, right? So, you know, base power 70 with Choice Band coupled with like the Chien Power is going to do a lot of damage. I would not be surprised if this one-shots a lot of these bulky mons that are just running around. It's really good into Palafin, of course, and then just like anything in general that's like physical, you want to intimidate it. But then you just get off like good chip damage into it. And then from there, you can kind of clean up with the rest of the team, you know, depending on what you have. Play Rough is really good coverage as well. It's like physical fairy coverage. Like you already have a Flutter Mane on the team, but then if you can just also go for Play Rough, it's also really nice. And then Terra Blast, Terra Fire. First of all, Terra Fire is really nice because then, you know, one way to really deal with Tsarena's damage here in this sense is to burn it. But if you have Terra Fire, you know, that's not going to work either. And, you know, as Tsareena, you're weak to a fire type in itself. You're weak to an Arcanine Flare Blitz or a Chi-Yu move, and then all of a sudden you just go for Terra Fire and you're able to resist those hits, right? So that's the whole benefit of Terra Fire. And then you're also able to resist Flutter Mane damage as well. But then other than that, it's just a relatively standard Flutter Mane Murkrow's team, right? With Great Tusk Chien Pao here, with of course Terra Flying. So another one where you can just Earthquake next to it if you're able to go for Terra Flying. You know, Choice Scarf, you know, to, you know, be fast, but now you're also hitting hard because of the Sword of Ruin. Murkrow, again, with Foul Play, Tailwind Sunny Day, so like a Prankster Sunny Day as opposed to Talonflame, enabling the Flutter Mane, Great Tusk, and Chi-Yu, again, like we saw with Marco's team. Very, very standard core with Murkrow-san. So I'm really not gonna like go into the rest of the core because it was just more or less like having Tsareena as this niche option here, because this team is exerting so much offense. And, you know, with Tailwind, the only way to really beat it is to click a priority move against some of these frailer mons, right? But then you just bring in Tsareena, and you can't even do that anymore, right? Because you have Queenly Majesty. So then you have full control of the speed on your side because you have Tailwind, and their, you know, priority moves are not going to be able to get around your Tailwind, right? So that's the idea behind Tsareena. So smart idea there from Nick. And from Sam, I'm pretty much seeing that it's probably more or less the same kind of set despite some differences in the mons. It's still a Great Tusk, that Scarf. There's a Tyranitar here with Assault Vest, but it's also Terra Flying. So similar idea there, but again, with Tyranitar, you're adding a little bit more anti-meta stuff because you are a Tyranitar for that matter. Rock, Slide, Crunch is really good, of course, with Low Kick. But the main focus here is the Tsareena. Again, also Terra Fire, but it's a Citrus Berry set as opposed to a Choice Band set, so a little bit more recovery. I would expect this is more bulkier, and it does have Helping Hand and Taunt, so it's more of a supportive Tsareena in that sense. So, you know, I could see like, you know, it coming in and clicking Helping Hand into something like either Flutter Mane, Tyranitar, or even an Iron Bundle. Taunt is really nice, of course, as well. And then, you know, just Protect, just be able to bait certain attacks and just stay on the field for a little bit longer. But nice use of Tsareena here for, again, the same idea as we mentioned, just to, you know, use that ability and stop these priority attacks from stopping your fast options on the team. All right. And then if we go into 35th place, which, if I'm not mistaken, they both have the same last names with Nick and Frederick, and they have the same flag. So I'm going to assume these are siblings. And is it going to be the same team? And yeah, it pretty much is. So I'm not really going to say anything else because it is the same team. But it's, again, really, really cool to see 3 Tsareenas within the top 64, right? So shout outs to Tsareena. Okay, next thing I also want to look at is Assault Vest and Annihilape, and we see 3 teams with that. First of all, here from Francesco in 6th place. Then if you go down a little bit, you'll also see it from Julio Tarlau and also from Federico. This is probably their team building group. I'm going to assume they have the same flag. And if I'm not mistaken, yep, it's pretty much the same team, just slightly different orders. So the highlight here is the Assault Vest Annihilape with Thunder Punch and U-Turn as the tech moves of choice to go along with the 2 stab moves of Drain Punch and Rage Fist. So couple things here. You know, Assault Vest Annihilape is actually really smart here. Along with Chien Pao, because again, you know, you don't have bulk up to get a defense boost or, you know, to give yourself extra damage, but you do have Intimidate on the Arcanine, which in itself is like a defense boost, and you also have Chien Pao, which is also giving you more damage by dropping defenses in that sense, but you also have Howl here. So with Howl Arcanine, you're able to boost up the Annihilape anyway, all right, and then from there, you know, coupled with the Intimidate, that compensates for your bulk up that you don't have, and at the same time you're getting the attack boost from Howl, which you're also getting from bulk up. But now because you have the Assault Vest, you're also getting special defense which is really good into like other special attackers like a Flutter Mane, for example, right? You know, you're able to resist that Moonblast now, especially with Terra Fire, which is for that reason. And then you also don't get burned because you're a fire type, so you're able to not take anything from the Will-O-Wisp, of course. And then from here, Thunder Punch, I guess this is probably for Gyarados, right? And then you can also technically say it's for Iron Bundle and also Palafin. I don't think it picks up though. And I'm also thinking about like, even if it's paired with Qianpao, I don't think Thunder Punch picks up. I think you need like a Howl boost along with Qianpao, right? To be able to do that. But I digress. Maybe this is also for like other flying types. Yeah, that's probably what it is, right? Like, let's say if things like go for Terra Flying, you know, if they are weak to a fighting move, then probably the Thunder Punch is just to read into that and, you know, just go from there, right? Besides being the coverage into the Gyarados. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that, but I'm going to assume that that those are the reasons as to what it's for. All right, and then of course U-turn. It's a good pivot move, right? So, and it's also great for positioning. You know, again, that's why it is a pivot move, but with bug coverage, it's great into the Ruin Pokemon because all of them are dark types, and you know dark types are weak to bug, so it's great into that. So you're gonna do a lot of damage and then just get something else in, so you're in a better position next turn. So you know, come in, deal some chip damage with U-turn, and then come back out and bring something else in, right? So there's the benefit there. But overall, it's a really cool team that these guys have built. You know, you get extra speed control with Iron Bundle, Icy Wind stuff. We already know like Amoonguss here, and again, it's another Terra Electric Amoonguss, so that's also really nice to see. And then Terra Ghost Qianpao, that's good. Fake Out dodging and, you know, fighting attack dodging. Sacred Sword to ignore those defense boosts, like especially Dondozo for that matter, is really nice. And then, you know, just by the way, don't underestimate how Arcanine and Qianpao getting Howl boost as well. Like that's actually really dangerous, okay? Because you're already like fast and you're already dropping defenses with Sword of Ruin. Now you click Howl, now all of a sudden things are just gonna start getting swept by Qianpao as if they weren't already. Dragonite, again, another one that also likes to be led with Arcanine in that sense. You can get off a Dragon Dance, you can Howl next to it, so now you're just +2 attack, +1 speed. That's a very good combination, you know, if I do say so myself. So this is actually really smart here from these guys, and I really like this team, all right, because, you know, you get the Intimidate, you get the redirection support, you get speed control here, especially with Icy Wind stuff, and then you can also get like an active form of speed control with Dragon Dance. So it's really nice here. So shout outs to them. And again, Assault Vest and Annihilape, you might see a little bit more later on because like this is great into a lot of these special attackers, and the chip damage from U-turn, and I don't know about Thunder Punch with the coverage. I guess it kind of makes sense, but the whole idea by getting Howl boost with Arcanine, having the Assault Vest, and also having the Qianpao to reduce more defenses is actually really smart as far as like these physical attackers. So shout outs to these guys for coming up with the idea. Okay, the next thing I also want to look at is Jamie Boyd's team. Dude, this team is insane, man. First of all, we got Screamtail here, and then look at this set with Power Band, and then Trick Room, and then Howl again. Like, we've seen a lot of Pokemon with Howl right now. Like, I was using Howl with Lycanroc recently on the channel. Now we got Arcanines using Howl. Like, well, actually the Arcanine Howls were already there in the first place. Now we got Screamtail with Howl, which is not a new thing. It's been used before, but has it been used with Flare Blitz Torkoal? That was another thing. And this is actually really good. And from what I understand, Flare Blitz Torkoal with Howl actually one-shots Flutter Mane, which is actually insane if you think about it, right? Because you're considering, you know, of course, the Drought, the +1 boost, the hard-hitting physical move, which Flutter Mane doesn't really want to take. Makes a lot of sense. So shout-outs to Jamie Boyd for coming up with, you know, this pairing right here. And then you can even Howl next to your own Dondozo, right? So you can give Dondozo the Howl boost, you know, with Trick Room by that matter, so you don't even have to get into Tatsugiri. Just like Dondozo having a +1 Howl boost, it's just going to be already doing like a lot of damage, and I think that was done already on stream by, from Jamie, so that was really cool. Then of course you have like the Tatsugiri Commander boost, and then Dondozo bit with Oblivious, you know, you can't really intimidate it, so that's also really nice. Life Orb Tatsugiri is going to hurt, especially with like Draco Meteors and Muddy Water accuracy drops, you know, Life Orb Muddy Waters, that's not going to be fun to deal with. And then from here, you know, Brute Bonnet and Iron Hands. Again, Brute Bonnet and Iron Hands both being relatively slow in Trick Room, so they're going to be, you know, the fastest things in Trick Room. You can Sport things, and then you're just dealing a bunch of damage into them with Bullet Seed and Crunch. You know, it's nice to see an offensive Brute Bonnet here. And again, you're enabling them with their photosynthesis with Torkoal, right? So Torkoal, Brute Bond, it's actually a really nice combination here, just to be able to deal a lot of damage, you know, in the Trick Room sense. And then from there, you know, Iron Hands, we already know what this thing does, right? Fake Out move, along with the electric and the fighting damage, so it's relatively standard there. And then just a really, really cool Screen Tail team. I like Psychic Fan's tech. That's great for breaking screens. You know, sometimes you know, you do need that option in that sense, and it's a stab move in general, so you might as well. Drain Punch Screen Tail is another thing I did not consider, but if you're howling and getting these boosts, now all of a sudden this Drain Punch is going to be dealing more damage, and you're just going to be unkillable in that sense, right? Because think about Screen Tail's bulk. Look at this thing, right? Don't forget, this thing is relatively bulky. You know, 115 HP, 199 defense, 115 special defense. Like, it's a very, very bulky Paradox Mine. I think it might be the bulkiest one, so don't sleep on it. And you can definitely use this on like some other kinds of teams that also want to benefit from Hal, but this is actually a really, really smart idea from Jamie. And don't be surprised if Hal's Screen Tail is used elsewhere, which it has already been, but you know, with NAIC coming up and some other regionals, don't be surprised if you see a little bit more Screen Tail coming in with Trick Room stuff along with Hal. So smart idea there, and smart idea with the Torkoal too. Assault Vest Torkoal is actually really nice. Consider like what it has in terms of physical defense. Now you add an Assault Vest here, and again with Clear Smog, you're just able to remove Dondozo buffs and opposing Dondozo buff, and then from there it's all about clicking Eruption and Trick Room, of course, without a doubt. And then Overheat is just another good single target move just after you take a bunch of, you know, damage and your Eruption just isn't doing much anymore. So yeah, all right, let's keep on moving. Oh my god, this team, right? So this is from Ivar, and this one had two interesting Pokemon here. That's Squawkabilly and the Dudunspace. Like, bro, I am losing to this guy turn one. If I ever face this person, I'm losing turn one. I don't know what to do if I ever see this. Like, first of all, Squawkabilly is one of those Pokemon where, like, you know, it could be good. It's just like someone needs to explore it. And someone needs to use it because it gets a lot of good support moves. Like, again, you have Intimidate, okay? You have Tailwind. That already is a good combination, right? There's only a handful of Pokemon that can do that. Salamence being one of them, which is why I like to use Salamence. Now you add the fact that it gets Parting Shot to be able to neutralize some, you know, big threat and then pivot out. And then you also have Final Gambit, right? Where you're just able to remove an immediate threat right from the get-go, and then bring something else in for free with the free switch in, right? That's also really good as well. So in that sense, this Squawkabilly has so many different uses other than just clicking Tailwind. Again, with Intimidate, you're in Parting Shot, you're just cycling out. Think of Incineroar. Think about what Incineroar did with Parting Shot and, you know, cycling in Intimidates. That's what this Squawkabilly is doing, along with, you know, providing speed control with Tailwind. So it's actually a really, really cool team. Then you get screens with the Klefki here, and now your entire team is bulky, and look who's dealing damage here. The Tinglu with Fissure, of course, might as well. And then the Annihilape, you know, sitting behind these, you know, screens, clicking bulk up until the end of time for sure. Then this Dudunspace, oh my god, here's the other one that was like, dude, Wide Lens Serene Grace with Rock Slide is broken. Like, come on, man. You're just getting 57 flinches, and then the opponent clicks forfeit. What are you doing? Right? But, and then again, Glare is also really good. So now you're not missing, and Glare is really good into also the ground types too, right? So that's the idea here. And then you're just like getting free paralysis. Like, come on. Like, the fact that someone explored Dudunspace is actually really cool. Like, Dudunspace, its stats are not like super amazing, but they're not bad either. Like, look at this. Base 100 HP, that's pretty good. Oh wait, that's Dunsparce. Hold on. Dudunspace. Okay, there we go. Right, if you look at this, 125 HP, that's already like pretty good. Base 100 attack, respectable. Okay, 80 defense, 75 special defense, not amazing, but not bad either. Okay, so this Pokemon is actually like somewhat, this is playable, right? Serene Grace having secondary effect chance doubled, right? Then you just add Wide Lens, so now your moves aren't missing. Okay, so like Glare is not, well, Glare already like hit the target, but then Rock Slide, right? That's the main thing. So like you're hitting your Rock Slides, the Glares are gonna paralyze targets. It's just like, oh, come on, man. But it's a really, really cool team. Oops, that's something else. It's a really, really cool team, so I'm really cool to see it right here. Then this one right here, Tatsugiri, but no Dondozo. Oh my god. But the idea here was Rapid Spin, right? This was the main concept where like if you Terra your Annihilape, then you click Rapid Spin. So now you're dealing chip damage into the Annihilape at the most minimal damage possible, right? And then that'll just boost up the Rage Fist damage, which is a smart idea, right? So shout outs to coming up with this idea. And just in general, this whole team is super cool. I don't know if there was a rental put out, but hey man, if it is, you already know this is getting onto Road to Rank, like without a doubt. But yeah, super cool to see Squawkabilly and Dudunspace. Now you might even see more people try out Squawkabilly on some of these teams, which hey, I'm all for. Okay, the next thing I also want to talk about in the video, besides like some of these interesting niche Pokemon, is some other concepts like what does hard Trick Room look like right now? What is the best ideal hard Trick Room? And I think we got it here at 24th place from Quentin. Again, just to give you some background here, like the hard Trick Room sometimes is a little bit tricky, you know, no pun intended, to play because it's very linear in its play style. It's easy to read and play around. And not only that, the Indeedee Armrouge stuff has struggled, you know, in Regulation C just because of Ice Spinner running around, breaking their terrain, and then, you know, just having priority moves, just ignoring your Trick Room in general. That being said, that Sand team with Lycanroc Tyranitar along with Indeedee Armrouge is still running around and causing havoc. So that's like maybe the one team that can really utilize the Trick Room idea with Indeedee Armrouge, but like that's still not hard Trick Room team. So then what does hard Trick Room look like right now? And I think we got it right here. So let's look at this. So Mousehold instead of Indeedee, I like. You still need Hatterene, which I also wanted, or I also tell people you still need Hatterene because the fairy coverage is very good against all these Dark Ruin types. Okay, and then you have a good sweeping stat in general. Okay, and then Iron Hands and Torkoal have to come, right? Any kind of Trick Room team, I still think you need like Iron Hands and Torkoal. And then from here, look at this. Substitute Iron Hands, which is really nice. So now you're dodging Intimidates and now you're not getting burned, okay, if you're able to get it off properly. And then Life Orb Frigoraph. This is smart because I always tell people Frigoraph, like despite the fact that it has a good ability and it has like solid bulk, the damage sometimes is lacking, especially, you know, with Throat Spray. You need it to get going, but sometimes you don't have the luxury. But now you can just ignore that and just say, I'm slapping on Life Orb and I'm dealing immediate damage right away. And not only that, I still have Nasty Plot redirection support with this Mousehold. So now I'm gonna get the boost, okay, and I'm gonna hide behind the bulk, behind the Mousehold, and just start clicking Dazzling Gleams until the end of time, all right? Which is really smart in essence, right? I really like this idea. So then from there, like again, you lead a Redirector, you lead a Trick Room setter, right? You force the opponent to kill your Redirector, like in this sense, the Mousehold. You bring in the Torkoal, you click Eruption, you click Dazzling Gleam, and things die, right? That's like, you know, Trick Room 101 in terms of like, you know, trying to use it. And then of course, you know, with the Iron Hands here, you know, again, being able to deter Intimidates is also really nice, but it also does well in Trick Room, you know, low base speed. And again, you know, with Swords Dance, with being next to Mousehold here is also really good, because then after that, even if there is no Trick Room, +2, you know, Sucker Punches are gonna hurt, right? Especially, you know, if it's coming from a King Gambit, right? So I really like this idea, and this is it. Like, I would not try and do another like hard Trick Room team, you know, other than this. Like, I understand there's like Lilligant Torkoal stuff still there, but as far as like hard TR, I think we got it right here with Quinton. So shout outs to them, you know, doing relatively well in the regional, 24th place. So if you guys are into hard Trick Room teams, do this, all right? And if you want an EV spread, I guess you can ask them on Twitter, but if you want me to do it for you, you feel free to DM me, or feel free to, you know, do a tier 3 sub to the channel, and then we'll build the team together and we'll create an EV spread with these same sets. You know, we may not be able to replicate Quentin's exact sets, but I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, you know, with this kind of team, with these kinds of sets. So if you're interested in hard Trick Room team, definitely come in, you know, apply to the channel, and register with that tier 3 sub, and we'll sit down in a Discord call and we'll build the team for you. All right, but let's move on to the next thing. So one thing I also want to compare with like the North American regionals as opposed to a regional overseas like this is, how did Palafin do? So here I know it won, but other than that, how else did Palafin fare throughout the rest of the tour? So, you know, over on our side, you just had 4 in the top cut, and then even in Portland, it was though only 4 as well. So like, how many are we having here? So you have 1 and 2 within the top 8. That's good. And then if you go down further, how much more Palafin do you see? So I haven't run into any yet, so I have to keep going down here. Not much. So nothing in the top 32 as far as like Palafin. So in that sense, okay, you know, you got 2 within the top 32. Then how about from 33 to 64, right? So here's another one. There's a third one, a fourth one here, 5th and 6th, okay, 7, 8, 9, and then I believe there's one more here, 10. So 10 Palafin in top 64. Okay, that's pretty good actually. That's way better than North America. So it's interesting to see how there is a little bit more Palafin on this side as opposed to our side. But look how much Gyarados and Iron Bundle there are. Like the numbers are gonna overwhelm the Palafin numbers. I assure you. Like there's so much Gyarados here. I think it's in the 20s if I'm not mistaken, but you know, don't quote me on that. But there's so much. And again, we talked about this before. Like Gyarados gives your team a little bit more variance and a little bit more toolkit than a Palafin that only just clicks either Jet Punch, the occasional Haze, and you know, Wave Crash. Which again, you could sweep a lot of teams, you know, that way. But again, if you already have your sweepers, then you need a support, and Gyarados can give you that. All right, so that's also interesting to note. But also with these Palafins that I have noticed, let me look at this one. Did they take a page out of Gabriel Legati's book, and did they go with substitute Palafin? So the first 2 did not, but if we keep going down and check out some of these other Palafins, like did Thomas over here at 33 have a substitute Palafin? There is a substitute Palafin here, so there's one of them there. How about this one from Nordy right here? Is this one? All right, this one's just a Wave Crash set. What about these 2 from Alex and Shonali, right? Did Alex do it? Alex is Haze. How about this one? Is this sub? All right, so there's another sub Palafin here, you know, on these balanced teams. How about here from Aurelian? Okay. All right, Wave Crash and Haze. Okay, sure. How about these 2? Are we gonna see a little bit more sub? There is another sub there. And how about from Antonio? Are we gonna see sub? We do see sub. So there's a good number of sub Palafins, you know, within this. So it really just depends. Like, is your Mungus gonna go back to Clear Smog? And then does that mean you're gonna go with another move on the Palafin besides Haze? And the answer was substitute. So you get around Intimidate that way. You can't Spore it because, you know, sub is good for that matter as well. Just remember, like, Subzation, right? But back in Sword and Shield, it's more or less serving the same purpose. So again, it's just another way of trying to play it, and just up to you as the viewer. If you want to put like Clear Smog back on your Amoonguss and just go for, you know, sub Palafin, which is really, really nice. Just hide behind it, click Jet Punches, click Wave Crashes. You know, you might as well, right? So it's cool sets to see, and cool way to compare Palafins on both sides. Always look at that. Like, whenever you look at a tour or a regional, like, look how some of the meta stuff is doing, you know, on one side versus the other side. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do here. Okay, so now let's also look at the latest rendition of these balanced teams. Again, like we saw with Hartford, we saw the birth of like Iron Hands and Tinglu, along with, you know, Gyarados, Amoonguss, and Chiyu, and then slap on a Fluttermane on it. And it's no different here. So we see it from Eric Rios over here. We see it from Luca over here. So let's just take a look at Luca's team just to get a sample size here. So it's Stomping Tantrum, Heavy Slam, Ruination with Protect and Leftovers. That's a good idea here. Chiyu, Terra Water, resist the Palafin stuff, along with Nasty Plot next to the Amoonguss. And then it's a booster Fluttermane. And then the AV on the Iron Hands as opposed to the Tinglu. The Iron Hands definitely needs it. You know, this is the one thing that can hurt the Iron Hands, is taking those special attacks like from a Fluttermane Moonblast. The Assault Vest is going to help it, whereas Tinglu, you know, you're bulky enough as it is. You can kind of compensate with that by just having a little bit more EVs invested in special defense. But I digress. And then of course it's a standard Gyarados set with you know, Waterfall, Thunder Wave, and Helping Hand. Helping Hand is really good, especially against with some of your other you know, hard-hitting options. So what about Eric's variation? Again, he has the same 6, but is it the same set here? So I do see leftovers here on the Tinglu. It is Assault Vest here, but the different berry on the Gyarados, but more or less the same idea. Again, similar concept. If we keep going down here, this one has King Gambit, which I believe is the other rendition of this team, as opposed to having Tinglu. So now there's King Gambit, but the Assault Vest is still here on the Iron Hands. But the King Gambit is Swords Dance, right? So that's the one thing that I do want to point out is, you know, Tinglu doesn't give you that, but King Gambit does. And it's always nice where you can just have a priority +2 Sucker Punch against some of these faster mons. So that's always really nice. And again, Lumberry is really great. You know, it stops the Amoonguss Spore. It also stops you from getting burned, at least for a turn, which is actually really nice. So shout outs here to Roberto for doing this. And sometimes you might even see like the Swords Dance on the Iron Hands. but it really just depends on the player trying to run the team. Let's look at one more of this. So let's look at Alessio over here. So this one has the Tinglu with the Assault Vest, and then this one has the Swords Dance on the Iron Hands, which is what we just discussed. So you see how you can have the same 6 more or less, but just change the sets up a little bit. So unlike Leftovers and Protect on the Tinglu, now you have Assault Vest on the Tinglu as opposed to the Assault Vest on the Iron Hands, and now you have a more aggressive Swords Dance, from the Iron Hands coming out. So Drain Punch is going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to help you recover all that hit points that you're going to take, all that damage you're going to take again, and same thing here with Thunder Punch, of course, instead of Wild Charge, so you don't take recoil. But after that, more or less the same ideas coming from the team, but again, just changing the sets a little bit with some of these mods, even though they have the same 6. So shout outs to all these players, utilizing the same 6, but just tweaking the sets just a little bit depending on how they want to play the team. All right, so if you're trying to play balance right now, use this 6, and again, if you're trying to, just trying to get some of these squads ready for an upcoming regional or an upcoming tournament, definitely check out coaching on the channel. We do offer team building services. It's a tier 3 sub to the channel. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're trying to build a squad, and if you're struggling a little bit and you need some ideas, you don't know how to do EV spreads, we've been doing it throughout the era of Scarlet and Violet. Sign up on the channel, sign up for tier 3, and get yourself that session with me. We'll sit down in a Discord call and we'll build the teams from scratch, and then we'll talk about certain matchups that you can play certain Pokemon in, and then just maybe test out the team a little bit on ladder. But again, that all depends if we have the given time. But we will give you that team. We will build you that team. All right. So yeah, I want to end the video there. I think we talked about pretty much all I wanted to say, as far as like recapping the Malmo Regionals. So we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.